As a huge fan of the ride at Disneyland, I was very curious at how Disney's Haunted Mansion would be portrayed in this new iteration. There's a great cast, but is that enough? A single mom hires a tour guide, a psychic, a priest, and a historian to help exorcise her newly bought mansion after discovering it's inhabited by ghosts. So it's been forever and a day since I've seen 2003's Haunted Mansion with Eddie Murphy. So going into this one was pretty much a brand new experience. I couldn't compare the two because I just simply don't remember the first one. This stars LaKeith Stanfield, Rosario Dawson, Tiffany Haddish, Owen Wilson, Chase Dillon, Danny DeVito, Jared Leto, and Jamie Lee Curtis. There's also a cameo or two, but I'm not going to spoil those. Now, as a fan of this ride, I had a lot of fun seeing all of the Easter eggs that this contains. I mean, there are so many visual references, both large and small, that call back to the ride. And there's also the score that plays throughout this, which I geeked out over a bit. Now, here's the thing though. While I've been on the ride countless times, not everybody who is going to see this has that frame of reference. So if the story can't capture your attention and then entertain you solely on its merits, it doesn't matter how many Easter eggs they put in this. Now, I had a blast with the characters. They all have wonderful chemistry together, and there's a bunch of subtle humor that keeps the mood light even when scenes get a bit grim. And there are also some laugh out loud moments. I mean, one in particular caught us so off guard, and it was just wonderful. And I'm curious if Rosario Dawson broke character during this scene because she covers her mouth like she's trying to stifle just this ton of laughter. Now, it's a line that Danny DeVito utters that's pretty inappropriate for the circumstances, making it all the more funny. And then Chase Dillon as Travis, the young son of Rosario Dawson, he steals the show so many times. His innocence combined with matter-of-factness, I thought was brilliant, expressing the emotions and even snark that a situation calls for. So when he sees something freaky, I mean, he's out of there. He's not dealing with that right now at all. And he was a blast to watch. I just wish that we got to see even more of him. I absolutely love watching LaKeith Stanfield act. He's got this mellowness to him that just is hypnotizing, and he draws me into his performance with his gravelly voice and then sincere deliveries. Plus, when he's bouncing off any of the other characters in this, he's charming, funny, endearing, and really just an all-around likable character. And he shares some fantastic scenes with just about all of the other actors, allowing his character to display all of those qualities against varying counterparts. Now, I really enjoyed how much screen time almost all of the actors shared, allowing each of them to get some prominence as well as background development. And even if it was through a small line of dialogue, large portions of information were conveyed on each player, allowing us to then know and understand them and also get glimpses into their thoughts and fears that then help to influence the direction of the story. And I also appreciate the lore that's established here. I mean, we get a ton of backstory and understanding on why the mansion is haunted and why the characters are being affected in the way they are. That story's not overly complex, but it is detailed and very dark. So it might be a bit too intense for young audiences. Now, the same goes for the visuals. While there are a lot of spectral beings that float around and they interact with the characters, most aren't wholly menacing. But there are a few that are very nefarious and dangerous, and they look and feel the part too. So when there's a threat of peril or maybe harm for characters, it can be somewhat intense, and it might be just too much for the littles. Now, there's nothing gory, but the visuals are done well, which then creates a lot of detail that could be disturbing. I mean, it's just something to be aware of if you've got smaller kids that you are thinking of taking to this. Now, something that's a double-edged sword for me is how some of the storytelling is executed. Now, I said that we get some good detail on the lore, which I think is wonderful because it creates a full and rich world for the story to take place in. But in this presentation, the narrative stops down at least 3 separate times to give us chunks of exposition. And while there are some graphics or maybe even some animations to accompany the voiceover, it drastically breaks the momentum of the story and also adds a bunch of time to an already long movie. This is just over 2 hours, so for a kids or a family film, it's definitely approaching the attention span limit. Now, I wish the exposition could have been delivered in different ways so that we're not taken out of the narrative to be told another story. And it's not like there's a narrator that's been established so that when segments of story just need to be told to us rather than shown, it makes sense and, it fits within the guidelines that the movie set up. But aside from the slowdown in the pace and the breaks in the momentum, there's way more emotion than I had expected in this. Not only do the visuals lean toward a tween or above audience, but the themes of grief, loss, and belonging are examined in some good detail and then directed at the more mature viewer. And I like the depth that it creates for the characters and their arcs, but at times it also feels like it's competing with the humor or the lightheartedness of the film. I do think adding conflict and real emotion certainly has a way of making a story more memorable and impacting, and in some respects, it even complements the story. But in tone, they were all an odd mix, feeling a little scattered in the emotional impact that the movie wanted to achieve. And like I had said, there's some good comedy and humorous moments in this, but it's not a laugh fest. And while there's intensity to the visuals and the hauntings, it's not scary either. It ends up being a tame film. I think that's just fine if you're looking for something that the whole family can watch and then be entertained. In the end, it provides smiles, chuckles, and maybe even a few tears, but I don't think it's going to leave a lasting impact one way or the other. So overall, Haunted Mansion finds its strength in the talented cast, sharing fantastic chemistry and charm while also delivering some humor. The visuals and even story content might be too intense for younger viewers, but they're also too tame for older audiences looking for some frights along with the laughs. And while the narrative provides good depth and development both on the lore and on the characters, it takes too long to deliver the story, creating pacing problems that also hinder the overall enjoyment. There's no sex or nudity, there might be a tiny bit of profanity, and then there is some violence. I give Haunted Mansion 3 out of 5 couches. So I'm not sure if I'd recommend dropping the cash for the whole family to see this at full price, but a matinee, it could be the way to go to save you a bit of coin. So, do you have any favorite movies that you watch with your family? I'd love to hear about what you watch in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.